Austin. I'm a program coordinator for 18 Reasons, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make black bean brownies. So 18 Reasons is a nonprofit community cooking school based in San Francisco that teaches the Cooking Matters Cooking and Nutrition Education program all across the Bay Area. So while we hope that you're all staying safe and healthy during these times, we also wanted to make sure that we're keeping you cooking and keeping you entertained. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of my favorite Cooking Matters recipes and how you can make it at home. So I picked this recipe because it's really simple. It's a big hit with kids classes, adults classes. Everyone seems to love it in our classes. And it uses things that you probably already have in your pantry. So if you're staying at home, if you're only able to make it to the grocery store maybe once a week or less than that, you probably have all these things in your pantry and you can whip it up when you really just need to have a sweet treat when you're doing nothing at home like me. So you might be thinking, like, black bean brownies, what the heck is that? And I promise it'll be okay. I'm gonna try and surprise my family later and see if they can guess what the secret ingredient in them is. Just tell them they're normal brownies and see if they can guess that there's beans in them. But besides the fact that there's less than 10 ingredients in these and they're super simple, there's also no flour, so they're gluten-free. There's not a lot of sugar, there's not a lot of fat. Really the bulk of the recipe is the beans. So let's get started. I'm going to start by combining our wet ingredients, which in this case is 3 eggs, a teaspoon of vanilla, and 3 tablespoons of oil in a food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you could probably use a blender or you could mash the beans by hand. You just might have a little bit of bean skin chunks in your brownies, but I think that'll be fine. You can probably just think it's a chocolate chip or something. So I'm cracking 3 eggs into my blender, and then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 3 tablespoons of oil, and oh, I forgot about this earlier, but in baking a lot of times sugar is considered a wet ingredient. I don't really know why, but we're gonna go ahead and add half a cup of packed brown sugar. So when I say packed, I mean that we're not just going into whatever the brown sugar container and scooping a half cup and dumping it in. You really need to press it down so that it becomes like a puck of brown sugar, like you'll see here. And that's just a way to get a more standardized measurement so that we know that your half cup of brown sugar is the same as my half cup of brown sugar. So now I'm going to put this thing on and combine these ingredients until they're homogenized and you can't see any streaks of egg or anything else. It's all one mixture. So now we see that everything is nice and combined. I'm gonna scrape the bottom a little bit just to make sure that there's nothing hanging out in there. And now we're ready to move on to the next step. Now that we have our wet ingredients all combined, we're gonna take our sort of half wet, half dry ingredient, our beans, star of the show, and add them to the blender with everything else. And these are just black beans that I have drained and rinsed a few times to make sure that that like bean juice that they come with is gone. And these are low sodium black beans. You really want to use either low sodium or no salt added, because although a little bit of salt is nice in baking because it brings out the sweetness, we don't want too much so that you can't even tell that this is supposed to be a brownie because it's so salty. So if you use no salt added, you might want to put a pinch of salt, but since I'm using low sodium, which does have a little bit of salt in it, I'm not going to add the salt. I'm just going to taste it at the end and see if it's the right amount of sweetness for me and if there's anything else I need to tweak. So now that the beans are in the food processor, I'm going to blend it until the beans are as smooth as I can possibly get them and there's no chunks remaining. If you're doing this by hand or in a blender or however else you want to mash your beans, you just want to really go to town and try to get those pieces as small as you possibly can. All right, so you can see now that my mixture is a little thicker. There's still some little bits of bean in there, but they're so small I don't think anyone's going to be able to notice. So I'm going to call that good and we can move on to our next step. All right, so now we've got all of our wet ingredients and our sugar and cup of cocoa powder and a teaspoon of baking powder. So this is why we do the wet and the dry ingredients separate, is because when this baking powder comes into contact with the wet ingredients, it's gonna start to fizz and give us the gas that we wanna keep in our brownies to make them nice and light and fluffy and not like dense and hard. So you really wanna do this when you know that all that's left is combining the ingredients and then putting them in the pan and getting them in the oven. So I've already greased my pan, and I'm gonna be really careful that once I combine these, as quick as possible, combine them, put them in the pan, get them in the oven, so that we trap all that gas that now we have the baking soda making for us. So that being said, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So now I'm gonna combine these just again until there's no streaks and everything is homogeneous. And then we have one final ingredient, which is our chocolate chips. If I can figure out how to get this thing on. There we go. Alright, so that's it. And if you're doing this not in a food processor but by hand, you just mix just until you don't see any more clumps or anything. So I'm gonna scrape the sides just to make sure that there's no little bits hanging out on the bottom or anything. And then scrape this off. I have half a cup of chocolate chips that I'm gonna add and just pulse like 1 or 2 times just to get them throughout the batter. This is also where you could add other things like nuts or M&Ms, or sometimes I add a little bit of chili powder to make them kind of like a Mexican chocolate sort of brownie. So this is where you can get creative, add anything you want. And then I'm just gonna pulse a couple times. That's it. So now I'm gonna dump this into our greased 9x9" baking pan. You can really use probably whatever baking pan you want, but it's gonna make your brownies either a little more thick or a little more thin, depending on how you like them, and I guess what shape. But I'm gonna use this 9x9 baking pan. So I've got my baking pan. This is what my batter looks like, so you can't even tell there's beans in it. Straight into the pan. So now we're going in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes until you can stick a knife into the center of your brownies and it comes out clean, so there's no batter or anything clinging to it. My oven's on 350. And that's it. See you in 25 minutes. While your brownies are in the oven is the perfect time to clean your kitchen. So I just took the brownies out of the oven after 25 minutes and I used a toothpick and inserted it into the center, and you can see that it's still covered in batter. So I'm gonna stick them back in another like 5-10 minutes, and I'll keep checking, and then hopefully they'll be done. So here we have our final product. I think they turned out great. I had a little taste when they were in the pan, and they're so good. I don't think anyone will know that they're not normal brownies. So now I'm gonna go find my mom and my dad, and we're gonna see what they think and if they can guess what the secret ingredient is. Okay. Just take one and tell me what you think.
Smells good. Really light and fluffy.
Really?
Yeah, really good.
There's a secret ingredient.
Should I guess what it is?
Well, what do you think's in them?
Chocolate.
Cocoa powder, yeah.
Cinnamon.
No.
Chili.
You're never gonna get it.
Butter.
No, but there's no flour in them.
Okay.
Instead, there's beans.
Beans?
Yeah, black beans.
So they're healthy brownies.
Yeah, exactly.
You should patent these.
I think they're probably already cooking batters properly.
Really good.
Will you try a brownie? Ooh. Okay. Oh, really good. Very fudgy. Will you try and guess what's in them?
Something must have made it this moist. Applesauce? Yogurt?
No, there's no flour in them.
No flour.
Instead, it's black beans.
Oh, you're kidding me. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just like black beans and cocoa powder and eggs and oil and baking powder.
Wow, black beans.
Yeah.
Well, you would have never guessed. It's really, really good.
Thanks for trying.
Oh, well, thank you. This is great.
Well, I think the brownies were a success. Thanks for watching. I hope you have as good of luck as I did. And stay tuned for more videos from 18 Reasons.